call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for masking. I think, I hate it, but it's probably prudent thing to do. As easy as this thing spreads, even if you don't get sick, it's just a nuisance.
I mean, nobody has time to quarantine, that's the thing. I mean, if you didn't have to quarantine, that would be one thing.
Yeah. But just having to be tested and all that stuff. Pain. Okay, do we, a motion to approve the minutes from December?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes in September.
That's second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, remarks. Okay, as you know, we lost Peter Hull, which was not unexpected, but sad. I stopped, actually it was the day before he died, during the snow period, to check on him and see what they were doing, because they didn't have power. And, but they had fire, they had a wood burner going, and they had a generator going, and then their daughter and son-in-law were there with them. But I could tell that it wasn't long, because he was very, very non-responsive and just barely breathing. You know, Susan's also having a hard time.
So is she extremely ill? I mean,
Well, I mean, she's showing typical signs of chemo and, you know, losing some of her hair and weak, and then, of course, mentally weak with all that's going on with Peter, and anyway, sad. But it did help having the daughter there, I think. And Peter didn't respond to me, but he just, I mean, he was basically gone. So I guess it was kind of a blessing in a way. I'd hate to have to linger on like that. But there's no arrangements that have been made yet. Susan said they're gonna have a private service in Maine later on this year, because that was kind of their favorite place. I think they were gonna go up there, they've got some family up there. So they're gonna go up there and have a private service of some kind. I don't know if what they're doing with him, but I've heard nothing about that yet. They've asked that any questions or anything go to Gary. Gary's kind of being the spokesman and public interface for him. Susan's having a hard time dealing with it. And they've asked that no flowers or anything, of course there's no service right now, but any memorials or donations go to the Fisher House Foundation. You can look it up online. It's a nonprofit charity that builds homes for veterans and military families near veterans and military hospitals. And they've got them all over the world. They build them, they turn them over to the government to actually run, but then they're open for nothing, and there's no cost. Families can go there when they're, if they're veterans or active duty, or for that matter, are in the hospital. So it's a nice effort.
And just the other thing, if anybody's interested, I do have the, you know, their address, you know, for, you know, if you want to send a card or, you know, whatever. I also have the address for the Fisher House Foundation.
Okay.
Does the association want to make a contribution? Does the association?
Oh, yeah,
want to
we
make a
talked about
contribution?
that. What Rhea suggested, and I think it'd be a nice idea, maybe suggested $100. All in favor of, I'll make a motion and then we'll vote.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll do that in the name of DPPOA. Okay, that's all I have. Office update?
Okay, I paid the insurance bill for the year, and there was an increase in it over last year. In 2021, the total was $5,068, and and this year it's going to be $5,334. That's directors and officers liability, that's everything. Just,
Say the numbers again?
well, the total for, last year was 5,068.
Oh, this year it went up.
And this
Okay.
year it went up to 5,334, so
Okay.
not a huge increase, but, some. This is kind of minor, maybe it shouldn't go here, I don't know. Anyway, Joe Bateman came in, you know, we added those trash cans to the causeways and so on. The one down on the Bay Causeway is being used for somebody's personal trash, and also bags of dog
Oh, no.
feces. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I said, bring it up here for the season. So it's been removed, because there's
Okay.
not that much in it, but
Yeah.
yet whoever's using it. And they really didn't want to go through it and try to get it addressed, I don't blame
Right.
them for
Maybe
that.
that's a newsletter subject.
Well,
Yeah.
yes,
And
and,
not that people always.
well, exactly, yeah, that
Yeah.
it could, is something that could be put in the
Right.
newsletter.
People are amazing.
You're gonna talk about the fees for the year, and
Yeah.
so I'm gonna wait on what the covenant fee should be, based on, anyway, I'll wait on this.
Okay. Well,
It's not really on the agenda, is it?
well, it would be part of the finance, I guess, but,
Yeah,
why don't we, let's talk about the general questions about it then, and then I want to follow up with some questions about
okay.
the STD and,
Well, I was just going to, talk about what the covenant fee would be for the upcoming year, because you base it on the CPI.
right,
So this year, last year, well, current fiscal year, the covenant fee is 110. Using the CPI calculator and so on, it will go up to $117.28, so we would round down to 117. So when you're talking about other income streams, that's what you'll be considering also,
okay.
okay?
And when do we actually start that increase?
Well, I would like to start printing my bills in the next week or so.
So it's for the money due by March 1st.
It's due by March 1st
Okay.
for the upcoming fiscal year. I mean, it's been delayed in the past, billing for one reason or another. Can't recall why now, but it was delayed a while, years ago now. So if you don't make a decision immediately, it's not the end of the world, it's just,
Okay,
Yeah.
but the covenant fee though, the way, like it's been approved, that goes up automatically with the CPI?
yes,
So we don't need to take any action on that?
no.
Okay. Now, what about the mandatory assessment?
That was put in place in 2014, it replaced the voluntary association dues.
Right.
And there was never any words about how that would be increased, except it would have to come up for discussion and a motion made to increase it.
Okay, is it something that the board decides on the increases or the membership?
The board,
And the membership doesn't have to approve it?
no, they did not approve the initial assessment when we assessed it, when it was assessed. The board just simply did it.
Okay, so it is currently,
55 for a developed lot and 20 for an undeveloped lot.
all right. Well, then let's come back to that. So we'll just go ahead and assume that the covenant fee will go up
Yes,
according to the CPI. I want to talk about the MA here a little bit. And the MA is also on the same schedule,
yes,
billed in March?
yes.
Okay,
I just send the one bill out and.
okay. So we, worst case, we don't need a decision until next month or
When do you want to send the bills out? Sometime in February, correct?
End of January, first part of February.
oh, and that's when you want to send, okay.
I mean, I've got to be able to print them and get them processed.
Sure. So
When will the meeting?
Print
be?
out and they're due the 1st of March?
They're due the 1st of
Okay.
March. So really, yeah, I mean, they could go out in February. I don't know when the meeting is. What's the first Tuesday? Does anybody have their calendar?
First.
Oh, it is the 1st? Tuesday, February 1st.
Yeah, and that's also the only date that I was available.
How handy is that?
It's also what?
Only date he's available.
Only date I'm available. So far.
I just mean, if it's that early in the month, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
What did you, what'd you ask, what was the first one?
The first Tuesday.
It's the first Tuesday's the first.
That's
First,
what I
yeah.
said, yeah.
So,
Okay, so that's helpful
all
as far
right,
as,
so let's come back to
okay,
that.
okay. So I'll finish my other stuff then?
Yeah.
Okay. Last month I talked about not being able to do claims yet because I couldn't get onto the site that I needed in order to print a military affidavit saying that you're not in the military, because you can't file a claim on somebody who's active duty. So I called back the next morning, and apparently they're redoing the website. That's what I was told that time. But in so doing, they're going, if I understand it correctly, they are going to require a social security number. So I sent an email
Who's
to,
they?
they being SCRA, what does that stand for? I can't think of what it stands for. It's the military is going to require it. The government is going to require. They already require that we have this military affidavit stating that you're not in the military. In the past, you could get by inserting a birth date, a feasible, possible birth date. And it would come back and it would simply say, it cannot be determined if this man, woman is active duty military. And that was sufficient. But now they're apparently requiring also the social security number. So I sent an email to the woman. I think they have one person, one employee dedicated at CRE to do claims, I think. And she said that they actually work with a company out of New York City, Michelle Gambino. I didn't even want to say the name because I knew that would be the right like, so appropriate. Is your father?
Yeah, crime family.
Well, anyway, $20 each. They have access, and it's Gambino Information Services Incorporated. And for $20 each, they can secure social security numbers. And of course, the $20 cost goes back onto the property owner's bill, and they would have to reimburse. So, and this company would have absolutely no contact with the property owner. They wouldn't be calling to harass to get information. I imagine I know when you try to search for things online, I don't know how much you've tried to search for people's, mailing addresses and phone numbers and to try to get in touch with them. But it often will come up and it will run through all these databases supposedly,
Right.
and then you have to pay.
Right.
And I imagine that's what they're doing, is actually
But how do
paying.
they get access to social security numbers?
I
That's
don't
weird.
know. I have no idea.
That's scary.
It's very
Yeah,
scary.
yeah.
I had a spammer guy that called me and I played along with him for 3 days.
Oh, you're great.
And my name, my middle name, my correct social security number. And finally, after 3 days, I said, let's stop this stuff, I said, what are you doing? And I won't tell you what he said to me. Well, he basically said F off. But that was scary. How these people get it is,
What was he trying to get you to do?
Oh, it was a Medicare scam.
Oh.
He was trying to get me to say that my doctor, I gave him a fictitious doctor, needed to run this particular test on my heart. He said, "You've had a heart attack, right?" I said, "No." Basically, he said, "You've had a heart attack."
Jeez.
And this was a 3-day conversation. Wow. Until finally I got fed up with him. Because I acted like I was an 80-year-old woman. Yeah, I did.
Well, I don't know, if you were to follow through on one of those when you're trying to search it for information, and when it wants you then to sign up, $1.50 for, more information. I've never followed through. I have no idea what kind of information is available on those sites. So I don't know. Is this something we want to pursue, or?
So, bring it back, I'm sorry, back up, I'm lost. What do you need this for?
I needed, unless I misunderstand what this website is telling me about the information I need to provide to get this military affidavit, saying that you're not in the military, you're not active duty,
Okay. For what purpose?
to file a claim. It's
Oh,
part of what
okay.
has to go in now when you file a claim. It's been this way for a couple of years.
Is this a website from the county?
No, this is federal government. Sorry, I can't think what SCRA stands for.
I mean, have they played in years past? I mean, I never heard of them.
Let me get my phone and I'll tell you what it stands for. Yeah, it's been this way for several years, and it's, I suppose,
We
a
need their
military,
approval?
we need their approval
So
to
you
say
got
we're not
one?
in the military.
You've dealt with them before.
Oh,
You're
yes,
saying this
oh,
is-
it's the same,
The social security number is a new requirement they're
Yes.
on you.
yes.
Okay, got it.
Well, you know, seems to me like if we have a reason to file a claim on somebody, we go ahead and file a claim, and it's up to them to come back and say, I'm active duty. So we put in the claim form, if you are currently on active duty, provide proof.
The claim form will get rejected
By
No,
the
no.
county?
I've never went out.
by the district court. That's who you file the
Well,
claim
how-
with, and they'll reject the claim.
Oh, okay. So this is after we've already contacted the person
Yeah.
and asked for payment and everything,
Correct.
and we go to so we go to file a claim.
So let's ask the
through
court, how do we get the social security number?
Yeah, ask them.
I could ask them, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
Because-
They're putting us in a terrible position. 'cause
Right.
that's
Oh, I
what the
know,
nation is
I
about.
agree.
Because then you get into all kinds of Privacy Act
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
and-
yeah. It shouldn't be on us to do that.
Sir, it's right on the claim form, and you check off a box, yes, this person's active duty, no, he's not, or I cannot determine it, you know.
So maybe.
Oh, I
And when
check
you
it
go
out.
to the
I did
SCRA
check
site,
it, yeah.
you actually print out the form, you know,
Well,
with the information or not on
I
it.
think like we said here is we need to find out.
It's the Service Members Civil Relief Act
Right.
of 2003.
Right.
So it's a government sanctioned,
It's the old,
whatever.
it used to be called the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act.
Okay. So it's legitimate.
Mhm.
Well, yes.
I'm just saying, you know, it is legitimate.
But
Right.
how do they expect you to have the social security number?
Right.
That seems strange.
You know,
Well, that's
if this were a new community, and people were just moving into it, you could, in your bylaws or covenants, it would be, make it a requirement. You have to give us a social security number to live here, I suppose. I don't even know, but
Right.
you would
Well-
address it in some manner perhaps.
I
But-
think we need to go back to them and say, how do you expect me to get a social security number?
Okay.
So you have no way of doing it.
Right.
Well, apparently I do.
No, no,
we
that's-
don't
I'm just
know-
saying.
We don't know about those
That's
people
not,
either.
that's not,
Yeah.
nothing about that is
We don't know
official
about-
or,
These
Okay.
Gambini people, we have no idea.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think the name is.
No, I'm not,
Okay.
I'm just referring to what you said. I wasn't
Okay,
casting aspersion.
okay. I'll call the court though. I'll call district court and see
Yeah.
what it is they
It's unreasonable.
might recommend.
and just because
I agree
CRE,
it's
just because
unreasonable.
CRE does something doesn't make it right.
Well, this is true. Okay, then the other thing is March general membership meeting dates.
Yeah.
I would suggest either the 19th or the 26th to give us, you know,
Okay,
Is that a Tuesday night or is it a Saturday?
it is
Well, we're having
these are Saturdays.
the STD is the
The
15th.
15th.
And then our other
And then-
meeting, we have a meeting on the 21st of this month.
22nd.
The 22nd, sorry, yeah.
And so then we need a meeting after we go to the
Public hearing.
public hearing. Okay.
Well, it's the quarterly membership meeting, so, yeah.
quarterly meeting.
I mean, unless you want to meet before the public hearing,
Well,
which would be the 12th.
that was a question that come up and
Yeah.
I can't think of any reason. Seemed to me like it'd be kind of too late in the game
Yeah.
to do anything anyway. So essentially, we're gonna go into this with one public meeting.
Yeah.
Unless something happens in January when we decide we have to have another one in February,
True,
then it would be up to Tony.
correct. Yeah, smart.
Maybe we can bring the feedback.
And the newsletter, I think we should have the newsletter out before the public hearing on the 15th of
Yes,
March.
yeah.
So just to keep that in mind. So then, do you want me to schedule it for the 19th or the 26th?
We're talking what month, April and?
March, I'm sorry.
Well, I'd say probably the later the better.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah,
Okay,
March 26th.
March 26th?
yes,
Okay.
and that's all I have.
Okay. No, is it? You got roads.
Well, okay. That's all I have for that. Here we are. Well, you know that the paving is finished, and then Chris is gonna be working on drainage, a few drainage issues, I think I already told you that. But I haven't gotten the final bill yet from Great Mills. We got the bill, $195,737. And Jeff McDonald, who is still kind of standing by a little bit, wanted also to see it. And he and Chris discussed it. And I can't recall what it was about it, but Jeff didn't feel that it was quite right. So Chris is going to talk with Bob Troutman, who is the man who does the proposals for Great Mills. And he hasn't done it yet. So in the meantime, there's also a driveway issue caused by Great Mills. It's different than the one I just showed you. Yeah. A property owner on Riverview, they had just had their driveway sealed, redone and sealed, all pretty, and you know how it looks when you first do it. And Great Mills apparently kind of went up on the interface and scratched it all up. And it is something they will fix, but they can't do it now. It's too cold. And I spoke with the owner today, and she's very patient, very nice, and understands that, so.
We
I
can
don't
also
know where
talk
we-
about the other one. while
Oh, well, you want to talk about storm cleanup then, too?
we're- No, about the other driveway.
Well, with snow plowing the other day, down on Marine Terrace, or Marine, I guess it's Marine Terrace, there's a house that has pavers in the driveway, and the man just sent me pictures. There's this long scratch across them. And I haven't talked to Grovers yet, but I imagine they'll do something. You know, in the past, if they've taken the mailbox out, they've always fixed it. So I need to let them know about that.
Okay.
Just a question about that.
Mhm.
Is this scratch on our right of way or is it on the private?
It's in our
property?
right of way.
And whose
I know.
responsibility is it, just to confirm that it's ours?
Well, it's Grover's responsibility to repair. They
Yeah.
scratched it.
Either
I mean,
way.
I guess technically, we could say, we don't care, we're not gonna make Grover's do that. That's our property. But I don't think we'll do that. I mean,
No.
Well, let's
You know.
go to Grover
Yeah.
and see, tell them what's going, show them what's going on. Hopefully if they get enough work from us, that they'll.
well, yes, they do. And speaking of, I still haven't heard about the well rings, when they're gonna get that scheduled.
Well, right now it's too cold.
It is too cold, and they have a foreman that has COVID, and more importantly, his aged father has it. I don't know how they're doing right now, but the father lives with the family, and none of them are vaccinated, so, according to a woman I know in their office. So, I don't know how they're doing, but they're down a person, for sure, Mike Toro. You know that name? Do you wanna talk about storm cleanup too in here, or?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay. Let's see, that was Monday, wasn't it? We could go Monday, so I was already at home. And so I called a lot of trees down, everybody knows that, electric out and so on. I called the fire department, they removed maybe 6 or 8 trees. A couple had to wait because there were lines on them, down on Beach Drive in particular. It took a while, I think it was till Wednesday, for them to get the lines off the trees. And then Carl Bowen, I had him on call, and he gave me a list of cleanup areas. Because the fire department comes in and gets the tree out of the street, gets it off to the side of the road, and then Carl comes through and does cleanup for us. So that saves us a lot of money, rather than having Carl just do it all. Some of the cleanup is just going to involve branches that are kind of broken off and are laying down, you know. And he was in, I think, last Thursday and got started. I don't know if he finished it yet, though.
Does that,
Still seeing some debris around.
Yeah.
does that include the one, the tree where the young man slammed into it down here? Is
That's
that-
Beretta Boulevard, so no.
Oh, that's right, it's not us.
Is it in the street, or?
No, it's not in the street, it's in the right of way.
In Beretta's right away, or, okay.
Same thing up on Dogwood, there's that one tree went down across Dogwood, but it's on county.
Right, I called the
County
fire
road.
department about that one. Not specifically, but I was giving them the list, and I said, well, there's one here on Dogwood, it's not our road, but can I tell you? And, oh, yeah, we'll do it, so,
Okay, 'cause I noticed there's still stuff, debris in,
right,
but that's county right away, right?
right, that one's county, yeah, that would not be ours. And Carl is aware of, pretty sure he's aware of that. I'll double check that list to make sure he doesn't have that on there, but I don't think he does. He also spotted 2 trees on Anchor Drive that are compromised. Well, actually, he didn't spot them, Gary Heel told me about them. And I had Carl look at them, and he said, yeah, indeed, one is dead, needs to come down, the other's compromised at the base. So I put in for a vegetation removal permit on that one, and haven't gotten an answer. Cost of snow removal total was $25,460.50.
How much was it?
$25,460.50.
Wow.
I know, it's not cheap.
Did they end up coming out on that second day or not?
They came out, but they didn't plow, but they
Okay,
salted.
They salted.
They salted.
Okay, so this includes that?
That includes that,
Okay.
yeah.
How much in the budget for snow removal?
I think we posted, or budgeted 40
40?
some thousand for snow removal, between different income streams. And I was gonna suggest, and Jack and I kinda talked about this a little bit, that we pay this out of shore funds. Because if you look at your balance sheet, there's a fair amount of money in there, and we have to spend that.
And it makes sense. I would.
Yeah. So
I think we should just make it a policy that these are the accounts that we dip into first and use them up,
Right,
Right.
right.
before we go into
Yeah.
our other accounts.
Well, the only problem is that when the past couple of years, when we budgeted shore money, we've only budgeted $7,000, because there was a couple of years where we didn't get much in the way of money, shore money. So I think it tends to get overlooked as far as the budget goes, and we need to maybe think
It's
about that.
41,000 now, it's astonishing, I've never
Yeah.
seen it that high.
Well, I remember we got that infusion 6, 8 months ago, I don't know now, of $10,000, it was like,
Yeah, 41.
I know. Yeah, so. But yeah,
Just
that
as
makes
a
sense.
policy, I guess it's just something you have to look at every single month
Yeah,
and just make sure we use those.
okay. And that's it.
Are we supposed to get more snow this week?
Yeah.
I
Well-
did there's a big article in the Post,
I was
but.
watching the forecast before it came over. Looks like Sunday-ish, there's another system coming in, but both models that are the best around here are keeping the main snow band west of us, somewhere between the 95 and 81 corridors. So but it's a pretty good amount, so, you know, timing, you just have to kind of watch the timing. But if both of those hold true, we're less than an inch.
Oh, okay. That's doable.
Yeah.
Where will you
That's
be
not,
in February?
Where
Where do you think you're going in February? Seriously, where are you going in February?
For
Well, you can monitor from here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, is there anything else on, well, I thought we had another plugged causeway over on Bay Drive, but they're culverts. Because I went over there two, 3 mornings ago,
Yeah.
and it was completely blocked. I mean, there was no water draining from the lake at all. And the tide was way down. So the outlet drain pipe was completely exposed, but had it filled up halfway with sand. And the lakeside, it was completely over the main culvert, which is a 22-inch or something like that, big culvert. It was completely covered that, not moving at all. So I said, well, maybe we need to get it unplugged. Well, Sal says Let me take a look at it. He went over there yesterday,
Okay.
but today at least, it was
Yesterday.
blowing like gangbusters, so
Today's Tuesday.
fortunately,
Yesterday.
it cleared itself this time. I guess there was just enough pressure on the lake, from the lake that it blew that sand out. So we were lucky that we got to that one temporarily anyway. Anything else in the roads? We got good support though from fire department, even Smecco, and of course they were completely under the gun. The biggest problem with them was that there were 2 trees that were down, knocked out power, and they went across the beach, completely cut beach off. So people couldn't get in or out.
Oh, my God.
And the lines were down, so so the fire department couldn't do anything until Smecco saved the lines. Now, it just so happened that Carl and I both showed up there at the same time on Wednesday, and a Smecco truck pulled up, so we all got together, and we convinced Smecco to save the lines, and then fire department or Carl, somebody, oh no, I
The fire department got it out the street.
think Smecco ended up coming back.
Oh, you're right, Penline did it.
Yeah, so Penline so we ended up dodging money and everything else on that one, they got it opened up. Then we had, the other one was on Mills Creek, a tree had taken the lines out. And I drove by there that Monday,
Monday.
and I see steam and smoke coming up. Whoa, what the heck's going on? I pull over, the lines are down on the ground, arcing and smoking and burning. I mean, thank God we had all that wet snow, or we'd have had a brush fire.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually, I think it shorted itself out, and so the line went down. But that one took a while to get, because Smecco again had to come in and save the lines before anybody could cut the tree.
Well, I thought about putting something in the newsletter. I sent a community email, and I didn't include this because it happened after. But Sal went down to beach at some point before the lines were taken care of, and somebody apparently lives up around there, works at the plant, and has access to a large truck of some sort. And he was there, was going to get the tree out of the road. Well, the lines were still on it.
Right.
And Sal stopped him, and I think people don't realize just because you don't have electricity to your house does not mean that those lines are dead.
Right.
So I didn't send out another message, but I thought, I know the newsletter's gonna have a lot of STD stuff in it, so, but if there's room, I thought, you know, there should be a little blurb in there about that. So I thought I'd add something.
Yeah. Okay, Jack?
Well, we talked about a couple of the line items already, and budget looks fine, we're on track in almost every line, every category for sure. So we're in very good shape. One thing we did talk about, Rita, was how much we appreciate what the volunteer fire department does, taking all these trees out, which is thousands of dollars worth of work that they do. And whether we have in the past ever contributed to their.
We did just,
They have a spring drive, they
when
have
we-
a fall drive and a spring drive. And I think we donated last spring here.
Well, when we had, I think, I'd have to double check the last time we donated, but I was thinking it was with this windstorm that came through a few weeks ago. Because we had a lot of trees down then. I thought it was then.
I didn't think we would.
No, I don't-
I'll double check.
I don't think it was recent.
No,
I
I
think
remember
it
doing that
was a while ago.
So, do you want me to like maybe put it on the, I'll double check, and then maybe put it on an agenda for the, to determine how much, or do you
Yeah.
just want me to do it?
Let's do it.
If we've done it
Yeah.
recently, which
Yeah.
I don't recall, maybe we have.
I'll have to, it's not gonna show on a report. I'll let you know when the last time was, I'll send an email.
Okay,
And
let's do
then,
that.
you know,
We
you
can-
can always say, yes, let's do it, and then
Right.
affirm it the next meeting.
It's not gonna make any difference whether we do it now or first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and Smethville doesn't probably get enough credit. I mean, they do an amazing job given what, you know, the size of the area. And we've dodged, you know, multiple big storms. This is probably the worst we've had since one of the,
Like 18.
I was thinking one of the hurricanes after Isabel knocked out.
Ernesto.
Ernesto.
Yeah,
That's
but
been a
anyway,
while.
Yeah.
they amaze me in how quick they get out and get things get taken care of.
So I didn't have cable for 48 hours. No internet, no thing.
What did you do?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say anything, I wouldn't be able to work at home if I didn't have the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you
Or
get
here.
used to it, and then when you don't have it, oh,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
I know.
I think I'll read, I don't read
But
that
you
book.
you didn't have any light in the house either?
Oh, yeah, we had power,
Oh,
we never
okay,
lost our
oh,
power.
okay.
But, yeah,
That's okay, at least you can read.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Sit and read.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a, yeah, Comcast. Or-
Yes.
Yeah,
Verizon.
yeah. Comcast
That's-
went out a couple of
That's a utility
times.
problem.
Really?
And the thing is, like, when these trees go down, after they break the power lines, they come down onto the utility lines.
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Well, guess
yeah.
what? Those guys never come out and do anything.
Right, yeah.
Comcast or Verizon, so.
Not in an emergency basis. I mean, they eventually
Oh,
get to it,
eventually,
but not
maybe,
like,
but, yeah, right. Okay, Jude, any environmental news from the end of the table here?
I have nothing, although I guess I haven't taken a look down on Lake Forest to see about the dead reeds, but I assume we will sometime this spring get Joe to, whoever we have, cut those.
I thought
dead-
he had, but
I
perhaps not.
I'll have to look, but
I'll double check.
can you ask him?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, Jenny has.
We had an Ivy League right after the general membership meeting last month. And I was pleasantly surprised. We had 7 people show up. And we did a lot, half of a lot on Overlook. We're gonna do the other half this Saturday. And I'm getting a lot of positive response from landowners, and it looks really good. I'm excited about the way it's going.
Okay, so this Saturday?
This Saturday,
What
10 to
time?
12.
10 to 12. And we put an
You want
announcement
to
out.
send me another blurb and I'll
You
send it
did,
back
you
out?
sent something out last week, didn't you? You sent something out
I
last
did,
week.
I did.
Yeah.
You said it was
And then
canceled,
I'll-
Right.
and then it was scheduled for this, I thought you said this
I
Saturday.
thought the last one I sent out, my mind, I thought it was you saying that it had been pushed on the hour because of the membership meeting. Have I sent one since then?
No, you sent one out last week saying it's gonna be this Saturday.
Yay.
I'm pretty sure you did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you did. And I'm also gonna put it on the Facebook page, so.
Okay, good,
Okay.
good, good,
All
good.
right,
Okay.
good. Okay, that it?
Yeah.
Okay, Maggie? Safety?
Well, the safety committee is kind of in mourning right this minute, but, it's just virtually holding its own right now, because Gary's away and David's away, at least until March or April sometime, so I'm just checking on to-go bags. We decided to go ahead and fill in the bags that we have back here with, things that are missing from those bags. So I'm just researching those, and probably won't be doing too much until everybody gets back from sunny Florida or wherever they're, Cancun, wherever they're
Well,
going.
Gary's here now, I don't know when he's
Oh, is
again.
he? He is here, yeah. Well, he was
He's the one
yesterday.
that's leaving like March or something.
I think he's leaving in March. I think you're right. What about Katie? Is it Hassler? You spoke with her.
I spoke with her, and she's very interested.
She's a first responder.
Yes. And she also gave us, well, she didn't give me the name, but she said that there is a guy who is commander of one of the fire departments or the rescues or something that was pretty high, higher up, that we basically could get us some help from too, as well. Not only serve the house, but, yeah. So it's gonna shake back up in the spring.
And this person lives in Durham Point?
I think so. Across the street from her, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
hand to be distributed. I do welcome folders, I've got a stack of those ready. Enough supplies on hand to assemble 3 more buckets, but I need to pick up brochures, but everything else is back there. I think sales have slowed down. Maggie, you would know, you're a realtor. They seem to have slowed.
They have slowed a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that typical for this time of year?
It is typical, but you typically, with our brokerage, we don't see a slow. We used, in fact, last year's, we did more in this period than we did
Oh, really?
pretty much the rest of the year. But I think people, because of the virus and the weather and all of that, I don't see too many properties coming on the market right now.
Just go back to my office update. I should have mentioned 400 Lake Drive, the lot that we bought. Been trying to, put a bug in the ear of the attorney's office, Tom Pelagotti's. And the woman I've been working with apologized. She's all these sales going on, and I imagine bigger sales than $8,000, so perhaps worth more time. She's passed it along to somebody else to take care of. And Ms. Hawkins actually called me today because she hadn't heard anything from them. So it's in the works, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Are we still waiting on that other signature?
Ms. Hawkins had not received anything from them asking for another signature and it's not actually, I assumed it was a deceased owner because she's elderly. It's not, it's her sister who is also on the deed. She had her added there so that should something happen to her sister would have the property. So I'm going to ask, what's going on with that, but I haven't.
So is
I
it
just
just
talked to
the
her
attorney
today.
that's drawing up the deed? I mean,
Yes,
the
Tom
contract.
Pelagotti's office. I did the sale, I called it a sales agreement, I think. I just went online and found something that would, suffice and sent it along. And the woman at Pelagotti's office said, yeah, you can do this. This works. I don't have to change it, so we're not going to charge you anything on this because I did it. Ms. Hawkins signed it, had it notarized, sent it back to me. I sent it on to Pelagotti's office a whole while ago now. So we're just waiting for it to happen.
So there's no time period on?
There is, and I asked her about that, because when I drew it up, she said, put a date where you can get the paperwork signed and so on. So I think I put on or about December 1st. I don't even remember anymore, it's been a while since I looked at it. And I asked about that, are we gonna have to start all over? And she said, no, they'll just put an addendum on it to say that there'd been a delay.
And when is she gonna do that?
I don't know, this is
Because
what I
the date, virtually, it sounds to me like, I'm not an attorney, but it sounds to me like the contract's dead. If the deadline is passed.
I don't know, because I don't handle things like
Okay,
that. I mean,
so
I'm
it's-
assuming they know what to do and will
Well-
do what they need to do, but I need to prod them again.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
so basically, and what she says, right, they can do an addendum, but typically you do addendums before the deadline passes.
Right.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I
Well,
guess
I
I'm
don't
not
know
an
that.
attorney.
I had sent, can't think of her name. Anyway, the woman at Pelagotti's office, an email last week and said, hey, what's going on? And she responded to say that this other woman in the office was going to be handling it. And she apologized. And then Ms. Hawkins called me this afternoon and I apologized to her for not keeping her up to date. I should have called her and I just didn't think to. But when she said she hadn't even received anything from them at all concerning this other owner on the property, this has been a couple of weeks by now. So, where they asked me for her contact information. So I need to touch base with them again tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe you need to elevate it to Pelagotти. They shouldn't be jacking around like that.
I wouldn't think so.
Because she could, I believe,
She could pull out, but I thought about that myself.
You could
I
drive
didn't
over.
obviously say anything like that to her,
No.
but it occurred to me.
Yeah, I
she
think
gets, she gets frustrated enough,
Yeah,
she
I
could
know.
say,
Yeah, I think you All right, I gave you a test a few days ago about thinking about a question. The reason for that, I got thinking, you know, we submitted a grant request proposal to the state. Long story short, it all went in, met the deadline. Then I asked them, well, when will we find out if we get a grant, any or all? They said, well, we tried to get it out in May, but it probably won't happen until June or July. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that we're in an unknown situation as far as the funding of the beach erosion project. Because whether or not we were gonna get any state money. And I thought, well, with that question in mind, if we put this in the STD, we have no flexibility in increasing or decreasing the amount. It's there for 5 years. And that's, I suppose that's one good way to look at it, is that, you know, you've got a funding source there, but from the standpoint of the property owners, if we end up not needing any or all of that money that we put in the STD, they're still paying for it. And that doesn't seem right to me. So I thought, well, would it make more sense to put the money that we budgeted for our, well, going back, we had decided we were going to use part of our reserves, essentially close to half of our reserves, 60,000, for half of the funding, and then either go to the state, STD, loan, or some other source to get the rest of it. Turns out that amount, when I put in the grant and got a revised cost estimate and everything, it had gone up to around, on the order of 140,000. Okay. Because of materials, and I knew that was probably gonna happen. So the money I put in for the grant was about half of that. So, and I thought, well, if the grant does come, then we don't need this money that we put in the STD or somewhere else. If it doesn't come, we do, but we're not gonna know that until probably June or July. And the STD is already gonna be done. And as far as that goes, a mandatory assessment for this year. But I thought, at least, if we made the increase, what are we talking? We're talking, I think we figured out around $15 or $16
Or developed lot.
per developed lot, okay? So we're not talking huge amounts of money. But still, I hate to put that on the membership if we end up not needing it. Whereas if I put it in the MA, we would have, we'd have to do it now. That's why I was asking about the timing on the thing. We would have to go ahead and make that decision. If we were gonna do it, we'd have to do it now for the next billing period. But at least if we did get the grant, next year we could reduce it. You know, we're not stuck with it.
You're talking about reducing the mandatory assessment.
Yeah,
next year.
because mandatory assessment would give us at least annual flexibility.
Mike, I'm just thinking, I wonder if the commissioners, if it gets left in the STD, I wonder if the commissioners, if the agreement could be written to say, you know, they're looking to receive grant money. If this comes through, next year, the STD will be reduced by X number of
Well,
dollars. I'll send the grant.
that's a valid question, and I don't know the answer to it.
That's gonna be a meeting between us and
And
my
that,
part.
and that would be over the 5-year period, right?
Yes,
Or just once,
yeah, it's over
the
the
5-year
5-year period.
period.
But then if we get the grant, it reduces for the following year. But that's a question for a commissioner.
Yeah,
Or-
but can we trust the government? That they would actually reduce it?
If it's in the agreement they've signed,
Well,
Okay, well,
do you think
if you believe that,
do you think you could ask that question to Norris?
yeah, I can do that.
Say, we've applied for a grant, we had put this in our initial budget, but we've also applied for a state grant. We won't know about the state grant until well after the STD is decided. If we did get the money, could you reduce the STD proportionally?
Right.
Is the mandatory, how does the mandatory assessment relate to the STD? If we take money out of the STD,
Well, I
you
don't
say,
think
One has nothing to do with
nothing,
the
okay,
other.
they're not really
they're not
related.
related at all, okay.
I mean, there's some similar funding, and there's some similar, expense, line items that you pay for with them, but I don't think they're related. The only real discussion or response I got was from Tony. And Tony, I don't quite understand his reasoning, but it was, he thought we shouldn't increase the MA because people have already had inflation and they would see this as being more, asking them for more money, but if we're taking it away from the STD and putting it on the MA, it's
That's what I'm, that's
a
why
net zero.
that's why I just asked the question I asked, if, when you calculate the MA, how does that relate to what you were expecting to have in the STD, or does the MA fund somehow feed into the STD? I mean, if people talk about the STD and say it's our money, but the government's kind of giving it back to us, where do they get that
It's being
money from?
collected in your property
Property,
taxes.
Right.
okay.
So, yeah, you would want to offset one, if you increase the mandatory assessment, then we would ask for less on the STD, I
Right.
think is your thinking.
Right.
Well, with regard to Tony, we're already saying the STD is going to increase from 115 to 175 is what we've requested. So now we might say, well,
160.
160, they're still gonna see that as an increase.
Yeah.
And then they're also gonna see the mandatory
They're gonna
assessment
hate the
increase.
increase.
They're gonna see both go
There's
up.
a lot of
Okay.
pushback on the,
Yeah, so I just don't, they will all have to understand that, well, we were gonna ask for 175, but we're not. Yeah,
I'm a little confused.
if we increase the mandatory assessment instead of increasing the STD enough for the beach erosion,
Mhm.
people would have to understand that we were going to increase the STD not just to 160, but to 175.
Right.
Now we're
Well,
not doing that.
Yeah,
And if we
I,
reduce the STD, do people's property taxes get reduced?
Yes,
Okay.
well, by that
By
amount,
that
yeah.
amount, okay.
Yeah,
well, the STD does, not their property tax.
well, the STD, the
Well,
amount they pay. I mean, if you look at your property tax bill, it says Durham Point Special Tax District.
okay,
It's a
so
separate line item.
But it's a
So-
separate, it's not a
but
property
the bottom
tax.
line that you have to write your check, that'll be less because it'll be, or not.
It
Well,
won't,
okay, the
won't be
the
less.
way I would try to approach this, like in the information meeting on the 22nd, is to present the two approaches and say, okay, we believe that the beach is an important and valuable community asset. To preserve it, we have put this much money aside out of our existing reserves, and we're gonna put this much money in the STD to fund the remainder of it over 5 years. This is gonna result in the STD, well, we need to present the whole picture of the STD. So it's gonna be, we'll show the pie and how much, how much is for roads, how much is for stormwater and whatnot. And then there's this little wedge for $15 that goes to the beach. Okay, so that total amounts to 175. And the mandatory assessment would be whatever we end up deciding it is, right?
Right.
So the person, the check you write on September 30th to the county is gonna be the same, but it just depends on how it's calculated.
It's going to increase regardless. The STD is going to increase.
Right.
It's either going to increase from 115 to 160
Mhm.
or 115 to 175.
Okay.
It's going to increase.
The picture though is,
If it's approved.
if this beach erosion portion gets approved in the STD,
Mhm.
it's going to be a $15 increase in your STD per year for 5 years.
Mhm.
Not gonna go away unless we get a different answer.
And that's reflected somehow in your
It's
tax,
stuck,
in your
okay.
property tax,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Very subject-
or the other approach is, since we put in for a grant,
Mhm.
we're gonna increase the mandatory assessment by $15 this year because we have to start it now.
Mhm.
If the grant gets approved, we'll reduce that, we'll take that out of the MA for the next year and the next 4 years.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a balancing act of, a timing act.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, you're trying to get something back from the, you know, the county. You know, and say, okay, let's have an agreement, oh, we'll get this, and now you'll reduce our property tax. Well, it's included in your property tax.
Mhm.
So, you know, I would be amazed to see that there's an actual reduction.
Yeah, but it's a different,
I know it's a different line, but when you look at your property tax, you know, you look at the total.
well, but they're two different things. The property tax is based on the assessment of your property.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's determined by,
But in your property.
no, it's determined by a group of bean counters who look at property assessments and look at the tax burden for the county and decide on what your individual tax is.
Right,
The other one, the STD, is concocted by another group of county and the commissioners who decide how much they will allow us to tax our owners for the maintenance of our roads and property. So they're not really,
So the check you write on September 30th is separate from this whole STD business and the mandatory assessments and our dues?
no,
Yeah, I hate to be so stupid, but I'm just kind of.
okay, you get a bill every 6 months for your property tax. And on that bill, they also have a line for the STD and a couple other little widgets that are on there, water.
So that's
Waste
added in,
recovery,
that's
yeah.
added in.
Those are all different lines on your property tax statement. So when you write the check for that, you're writing it for all those.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Part of it, yeah.
And this wouldn't be, if we got the grant, and if we were able to work it into the agreement, that then the following year, it would reduce by that $15. I don't think we would be reimbursed. We're not asking that they reimburse
No.
money to us. We're just simply saying in the agreement, if that happens, it'll kick in automatically, that it reduces by $15.
The following year.
The
but
following
then,
year.
but then when you're paying your property tax, that line that says STD, it's going to be $15 less.
Right.
It
So
should.
your property tax is
If-
going to be
$15
$15 less, maybe,
The total
Maybe,
check.
next year.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, your STD is gonna be $15.
That line item.
Well, but
That line
it's a line item, but your total profit, that when you sign that,
The check, you're right. The
when you
check, you're
sign
right.
that property tax thing, it doesn't say, I'm giving you a check for STD and I'm giving you a check for my
No, but
property.
it
It's all included.
it includes the STD amount. So
Right,
if the
that's what I
STD
said.
amount is X this year and it's X minus 15 next year, that will be reflected in the bottom line.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I doubt, I mean, I just don't, because if you're saying that's up to the commissioners, and the STD and the commissioners are all separate from, you know, the rest of the county, I'm really more in favor of us managing, you know, like doing the reduction, you know, like the next year.
Well, so am I.
Instead of depending
That was
on,
my thought. That's
instead
why
of depending on,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, the county with an agreement,
Right.
and do we all sign that agreement? Do we all get copies of it?
Only
To say that, wait a minute, we got the grant, where are we getting the reduction?
I would rather not go that way, because I'm not so worried about them reneging as I am about the whole process of trying to manage it.
Mm.
And I would rather us have control of our own destiny.
Mhm.
But Tony raised some you know, some valid questions, and I think we have to be careful about how we present it, because like you said, if it was perceived as being, oh, instead of getting one increase, I'm gonna get two. Yeah, but the net effect of those two is zero. I mean, they become the same, and the next year, we have an opportunity to reduce it if we get this other money. Otherwise, they stay the same. It's just that here's one pot, here's the other pot.
But he asked that question about fungibility because he was very confused about if the whole amount was in the STD, whether you could use other things if you needed extra.
Yeah, you can move it around
But he
some
said
extent.
maybe.
To a degree.
to a degree.
See, now, was Tony aware that, you know, we're going to have to raise the covenant fee?
I don't know. He should be aware, he's president for years. I mean, yeah, he should be aware that every year that covenant fee increases.
Mhm.
It started out at
Well, that's
$98
because of
and
the
then,
CPI though.
yeah, that's at CPI.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
regardless.
And you could, I suppose, as a board say, I make a motion, we're not gonna do that this year. But a few years ago, when that was suggested, I think it was Gary was president, and he said, I don't think that's a good idea, it's a bad precedent to set. Because then there's, you know, controversy every year, we're
But
gonna
the
raise it or we're not gonna raise
CPI,
it.
the CPI issue and the covenant, that's not his question. I think his
No, I know.
question was.
But she asked it.
No, but it has to do with this whole thing
Sure, oh
about
yeah, I
Yeah.
realize.
raising.
But I mean,
Because
the
everybody-
CPI goes
everything's
up every year.
going up.
Because of the it goes up anyhow, but this is a different amount, even more going up because
Right,
of the beach erosion project.
right.
Assuming we don't get the grant, right?
So what I take from all this is that we better do the simplest thing.
Yeah.
Because look at, we are people that at least look at this once a month.
Mhm.
Who's gonna try to explain this to the membership? I dread the thought. to tell you
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah.
So whatever the simplest, and I think
What do you think, the simplest?
just go ahead with the STD, because another layer of complication is dealing with the county. Although it may be okay if you talk to John Norris and he says, yeah, but I suspect nothing's, my dealings with the county have never been easy, so I just hope we do whatever the simplest thing is.
But if we take out the variable question with the county and just not put it in the STD and put it in the mandatory assessment instead, wouldn't that be just as simple?
Yeah, I think so, and it'd be maybe easier to explain, I hope. So that would, and keeping it in our own hands, I agree, will definitely be simpler.
What if you, when you wanna sell it to the community, if you specify, maybe this would be dangerous. So if the, mandatory assessment goes up just by $15, that in 5 years, when we've done the beach erosion, it's all been paid for, it will go back down? Or is that a dangerous thing to say, and then in
Well-
5 years, you can't do it because, for whatever reason?
Well, I hate to say that because other things could go up.
Yeah, exactly, so,
And-
never mind.
We wouldn't realize that.
Right, that's a bad thing to say.
I think it's good enough to say that if we put it in there and we get a grant to cover this money, then we can take it out
Right.
in the next cycle.
But the mandatory assessment is not anything that has to be brought to the membership, correct? This is something that we do every year, right?
We do, but the membership will have an opportunity to,
Come to your door.
it's, yeah. No, they have to approve the budget in June. And of course, you've already assessed,
We've already
Yeah,
by
done it.
as of March
It's
1.
not about it.
But I guess if there was enough anger over it, they could come and droves to the membership meeting and not vote for the budget, and then I don't know where you'd be. It's not happened, I'm just saying, that would be the membership.
Okay, so, but that also sort of raises the question of, do we not even, if we decide to put the erosion deficit in the MA, do we then just not even bring it up at the,
On the
Information meeting.
22nd?
And we just cover the STD alone, period.
Well, you could do that because especially if you're not gonna send bills out until February.
But then if the bill in February is going to be this bigger bill, then people are blindsided.
Well, and I would say that there's at least one person I can think of that most likely at the meeting will say, well, what's gonna happen with the,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have any problem with being
I'm just saying.
open about it, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wondered if, for discussion, what
Yeah.
people think.
Because we have to make a decision, right, one way or another, because if we're gonna put it in the MA, it has to be done.
Well, by now or next meeting, you
Yeah.
know,
Right, by
yeah.
next meeting.
Okay.
So,
Is there a graphic way, a good graphic way to depict the two, it's really the same amount of money, but it's coming from different pockets? I mean,
Yeah.
people could see that at least.
yeah. I
It's
think
gonna
so.
go up either way,
Right,
assuming we don't get the
right,
grant. If we get the, and even maybe a chart that would show if you get the grant,
I'm sure.
yeah.
where this money
Well,
is
that was what I
flowing.
was planning on
Yeah,
trying to put together for
Yeah.
the meeting. Put together a little presentation that
Mhm.
shows these alternatives and show what's in the STD and what, you know, what,
mhm.
I agree that, I think we should definitely keep it under our control, like you said, and the MA is what the choice I think we have for that.
Right.
I don't know how it is.
okay, well, I still like to know the answer about,
The agreement?
from Norris, what,
I'll send him an email. He's usually pretty responsive. If he doesn't respond quickly, I guess I'll just call him. But you'll also, if you decide to go with the mandatory assessment to fund it, somehow that word has to get to the commissioners that we're changing our request.
oh, no, we'd have, yes.
Okay.
Because we would then have to go in and amend the budget that we submitted.
Yeah, yeah,
We would lower.
right.
So that's, you know, that's kind of the reason for the question again, is, we're considering another source if,
Right.
And-
you know,
and
grant
another-
money and,
Oh, sorry.
Well, wouldn't it be easier to say, if we get the grant, the mandatory assessment will go down? I'm not worried about precedent.
mean the STD. Sorry, oh, the MA. If we put it in the MA, yes.
But it can't go down if we put it in the STD, as we said.
Yeah, right. The STD, we don't,
Unless they'll.
we think maybe we don't have flexibility, but
But
we
what
need that.
happens with that money in the STD if we don't use it, all of it, that money?
It rolls into the next year, into the next STD. If you look at the reports that
So
come.
that'd be 5 years from now.
Yes, if you look at the reports that come, it says special tax district 1, 2, 3, 4, and you know, they're still collecting, you know, from years ago, if somebody finally pays.
There's $227,000 in there.
But I'm gonna write a check for 130 or so, well, some of that comes from covenant money. Gonna write a check for, where am I? 169.5, I don't know.
So that
I don't know what the
leaves 50
separate
or
budget
60 in
is.
there.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not poor.
no,
And, there's money that we can use there. to give us
well, and
the
this is
flexibility
as
we're
of,
looking for.
this is as of the end of, probably the end of November. That does not have collections in it that are coming in at the end of December. Because when you have a mortgage, they take half out, I think, in September and the half out in December. So there'll be more money coming into that number right there.
So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Even more flexibility.
And
for us.
it wasn't one of Tony's points, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, that if you left it in the STD, or if we, however, if we don't get the grant, you wouldn't have to increase the mandatory assessment if you get it from some discretionary funds, or is that the reserves or something?
There is money.
Yeah, but it's not STD money. We can't just willy-nilly say, we're using this. We have to get
No.
approval from the commissioners.
But I think Tony was talking about some other pot of money to avoid having to increase the mandatory assessment, because I know he was very concerned about that.
I think, Jack, he's just talking about, if you look at this
Yeah, I don't know.
balance sheet,
I was confused by
The
Tony's
second-
message, to tell you the truth.
the
I was
second line
confused
item,
too, so.
the second line on the balance sheet, it says assessments, MA, covenant, operations, blah, 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 ICS. that's the account, there's 180,000 rounded up in there. And I think that's the kind of money he's looking
What's
at.
ICS stand for?
It's your cash sweep.
Oh,
I think for a second. But that's so that we could take all of our accounts to this bank, thanks to Mike, great suggestion. And then it sweeps out, and I mean, you know, $2.50 will sweep out, we keep us at that $100,000 threshold. Sweeps out to another banking institution. I think that's the money he's talking about that we don't really think about, it's there. And
I think he just is very concerned about increasing the mandatory assessment and having, like you say, people can't say you can't do it. I mean, we're not, you don't have to vote for it, but he was very concerned about the pushback, and I wasn't sure whether your point was that you were wanting to make sure that if you put it in the STD and we went over, then we'd have to then assess people. But that's not, obviously wasn't your point, okay.
No, my point was either or.
Yeah.
And so there's, the net difference is zero
Mhm.
when you show people.
So, yeah.
If you come out of this pot or come out of that
Yeah.
pot.
And that's one view, and then the other view is if you get the grant, then you have another,
Then you can lower this
lower
one,
this.
whereas we don't know what
We
will
may
happen
do
on
one.
this one.
Okay, got it.
We're afraid they may not
Okay.
lower it for you
Yeah.
until we know.
Or it might be this thing that gets rolled over in 5 years to the next STD, which
Right.
doesn't do us any good. I
And
mean,
the other aspect of this is that, let's see, we have to decide what our MA is soon,
mhm,
by first of the month.
mhm.
We're not gonna know until, well, even beginning mid-March, what the outcome of this public hearing is. And I don't know how quick they make that decision. Do you remember?
I don't know.
Oh, you mean,
I imagine maybe at their next meeting, they meet monthly.
Okay,
I
so,
mean, whether they even approve of the STD.
so it may be, yeah, may be April before we know if they've approved it,
Right.
or part of it, or,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So we could end up, where we have neither
Mhm.
source of money.
But we have to assume, right now, we have to assume we're not gonna get the grant. We
Yeah,
might,
I
but,
mean,
as far as the.
For the near
For the near term,
we have,
something.
we have to
Just assume-
establish a budget. and-
Yeah, we have to assume we're not gonna get the grant, and then
Right.
we have to figure out whether the money's gonna come from the MA or
Right.
the STD, which, yeah, I see your point.
But, you know, increasing the MA by $16, if it was 30 or 40, I think
Yeah.
we'd have an uprising on our hands.
Yeah.
$16, I think it will probably be more palatable for people.
Well, and it's an overall total increase, I thought it's $15, of 67, apparently $68
Mhm.
overall between
Right.
the STD increase, the CPI on the covenants, and if we do that.
What was the bill you sent out last year to the community?
The total,
Mhm.
you paid 165, 165.
And what will it be?
It will be 117 plus $71, is that what we're looking at for the mandatory
Yeah,
assessment?
roughly.
So 188,
Okay, so from 165.
plus that increase to the STD, so a total increase
Yeah.
of $68.
And some of this is because of the CPI.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, so that would be also good to break out in the chart, because that's,
Yes.
we don't control that. I'm just saying, but the people are gonna.
Well, we could control it. The board could say we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, but I mean, let's
Just
assume we want,
saying.
let's assume we think that's a good thing to continue to do, so let's just say that's a given.
I think you could express, Mike, that the total impact is $68, regardless of how the board chooses
Mhm.
to do it. It's going to be a total impact of $68 a year.
For increase, what?
Of all three fees, a total impact of $68, unless my numbers are wrong.
Well, I'm just saying, what the check you write, instead of 165 last year, it's gonna be 180, 80 something.
What'd I say?
So that's not $68, so. I mean-
No, and combined with the STD,
Oh,
total impact on your budget
STD is how much now?
is 115.
115, and we were raising it to,
Well, 160 if we do the MA.
okay. So that's $45,
Yes.
and then MA,
$71, you said?
with the,
That's,
So break it down again,
Yeah,
so
with
one,
That's $16, and then the covenant is $7, right?
right,
Okay,
so the STD is
23,
150.
$68. That's
$68.
a net increase.
So, but people, when they write their check, they're only gonna see the increase from 165 to 180, whatever, right?
Well, they're writing different checks, so
Okay.
depends on
They,
which,
they pay.
Oh, you're
me-
saying-
they pay me.
You're saying that your property tax bill, that part, that's, one check we write to DPPOA, right, due March 1st, and that's gonna be 180 something?
188, you said.
Is that what I said? Yes. Yes, 188. Chicken
Okay,
scratch.
and then the other check you're talking about is what you write to the county
Your
treasurer?
property taxes,
Right.
yes,
Right,
Okay,
yes.
and that'll
That
be an extra 150 to your, that you will include in your property tax.
well,
well,
again, if the,
If it's
if the
accepted.
188 that they send to us,
the DPPOA.
that assumes that we put the beach money into the MA.
Yeah, but we were saying that we were going to ask for 175 for
Initially,
STD.
initially we said. that.
Initially,
Oh,
but now we're moving that over, we're putting that in the MA.
Okay, so
So the M-
we're asking for 150,
160,
160.
160 would be the STD.
Okay, so 160 would be in your property tax in September, or
Right.
whenever they,
Right. So, ends up costing a total of 300, for a developed lot, $348 a year, which is pretty damn cheap for everything we have.
But how do you get that, that's the 188 plus the 160, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the CRE is up over 700.
Yeah, when I first moved here, what I was told what the fee would be, I thought they were talking yearly, I mean monthly.
Yeah,
Monthly,
Yeah.
not yearly.
Right.
So I was really,
Well, how about when it was only
Or-
$10?
yeah,
or
2006.
quarterly,
Yeah.
because that's how it is in Alexandria, it's quarterly.
Quarterly?
CRE is one, you said how much?
It's up over 700. I don't remember.
Just the STD or?
Their STD is, last I knew, was 265.
Okay.
Plus they have a covenant fee that's always been adjusting according to CPI. It's always been higher than
I don't know
ours.
how.
And they have an
somebody can make
HOA
that.
fee that's always been mandatory.
Wow.
And I'm not sure, but it's up over 700, I'm quite sure.
This is like, seems complicated.
It does seem.
I mean, what if we just kick the can down the road? And seriously, and if we get the grant, then we'll be arguing about how to best present a reduction instead of an increase. Let's just keep going with what we've got planned. I'm starting to wonder why we should, it's so much easier to sell a reduction, I think.
Yeah.
If we're lucky enough to
Well,
get the grant.
And if the commissioners will allow the agreement to be written in such a fashion that the first year goes by and then it gets reduced because you got the grant.
Well,
But we can always reduce the mandatory assessment,
True.
mhm,
which is totally in our control.
mhm.
But then good luck raising it again.
Well, you know,
But you're not gonna raise it as much, right?
if we don't need it, it should go down.
I agree.
So there's no worry about raising it.
Well,
So what would that make it this year, that, what are you saying it would go out as a bill and instead of?
I'm just wondering about
March 1st?
methodology here, not so much the numbers.
Well, I think that the numbers are gonna be important to the community, because they're gonna be reacting to it. Not that it's so outrageously more expensive.
Hey, Jack, I don't quite follow what you're saying.
Well, maybe, I guess I've changed because just observing this. What if we just go ahead with the STD request as it is, do our other planned changes, the CPI and all that, and just do it? And if come July or August, or whenever they get around to telling us, and we are fortunate enough to have a grant. We can reduce everything at that time. Reduce whatever is in our control at that time. If it's the STD, too difficult, let's just do the mandatory assessment then, which is in our control.
Okay, so so you're basically saying, keep the erosion project in the STD.
Keep everything as it is, rather than, we're already,
Well, there is no as it is because nothing has been approved.
no, but we
So-
submitted to the county.
He's talking about the petition
Yeah.
itself.
But the risk there is that you're assuming that we're gonna get the approval on the STD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they could come back and say, oh, you're not getting any of that money.
Right,
Well, then we're back to square one anyway.
right.
And then it's too late to
But if
rebuild
we-
for the year.
But if we put it in the MA, which we have the flexibility to do, and then we get the grant, we can, it takes till next year, but at least then we can reduce the thing without having the risk of waiting for the county to decide what we can and can't have.
So you're saying straight the beach erosion completely on the STD, you're back to what you're,
Well, that's what I'm at.
okay?
I guess that would be,
And I wonder, I'm
I've come around to think that may be the thing to do, but I know there's,
Okay, this is confusing to me.
I guess we'll get some advice from Norris when you talk to him.
hopefully,
But-
well, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, my experience of dealing with government entities, once they've got something, it's hard to change.
I know.
Even if it's
Even if
written.
it's not approved yet, I
Right.
know, but still.
But I wonder
It may
too,
raise more
if
questions.
if you say to the commissioners, gee, we were going to ask for 175, but now we've decided we only need 160. If they might look upon us and say, oh, look at you being so responsible and not trying to get all the property tax money. And they might be more
Well-
likely to approve the 160 versus them saying, oh, you only need 140 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but if we took it out now, if we took it out soon, it would, by the time we got to the commissioners, everything is gone.
It
they're not
wouldn't come
even-
up. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
you're right.
so we're not talking a reduction.
You're right.
All we're doing is reducing the risk that they're gonna come back and say, no, this is only for roads.
Right,
You can't have it for putting sand on your beach.
right, okay.
And that, that's kind of the risk we're dealing with, I think, more than anything. Well, go ahead, find out what Norris says, and then,
And I'll send an
We'll-
email out.
we'll
when I
email
find
and-
out.
And then somebody could break this up so I can understand it, because I'm confused now.
At least the initial reading from Norris was that we could use this for the STD, I recall.
And then
I
beach
think it was
erosion
Norris
project.
in the county that
I
said,
think
yeah.
legally we can, but that doesn't mean the commissioners have to. They may approve.
So it's become a political issue.
yeah, we were just kind of going by there's a verbiage in the SCD Act that says, roads, et cetera, and community amenities,
Amenities.
or something like that.
This is a community amenity for sure.
But we don't know what, but, because based on what was the past, didn't they tried to finance something else on an earlier STD, and they said no? And I don't remember what it was.
Well, I did run into some words, I don't even know, some old minutes or something where we had at some point requested money for beach erosion. But that's like 10 years ago, a whole different set of commissioners now.
Right, well, that's the thing, you're
So-
you don't know what you're dealing
No,
with
you really don't.
with these guys. It's not an objective criteria.
Mm-mm.
It's,
Right.
anyway.
So, but I'll send an email, once I hear from John Norris. I'll let you know, what he says.
So what have we decided? I mean, Jack had an idea of leaving everything as the way it is.
Well, I'll still just ask the question, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
we're doing it, yeah.
See, but if we leave it the way it is, we won't be doing anything with the mandatory assessment.
Right.
And then we're hoping that one of the commissioners or whoever will say, yes, if you get the grant, the county will give you back, we will lower your STD, so you'll pay less in your property tax
The follow.
the following year.
But you're right, that may.
That's what-
that's
that's the way Jack is
dicey.
saying.
Yeah, that's dicey.
This way, it stays the same, you're gonna get the same thing in your, property tax, but you're gonna pay more in your mandatory assessment. And then if we do get the grant, it's almost instantaneously that the board says, okay, as of whatever, you get a reduction.
The next year, it would be the next year,
Yeah.
but it'd be that money, that same money,
I don't know if I like those odds, I just,
which I
that's
don't.
a lot of odds, to have to, if we get the grant and, I don't know.
But you don't really have a choice. The dates are what they are.
I think we're
Well, I
gonna
know
assume
that.
for this planning purpose right now that we won't get it, it's the worst
No,
case.
maybe, yeah. For the
Worst
worst
case.
case scenario, yeah.
So what I'm saying is what Jack is saying, it just seems to me like there's too many ifs in there to.
Well, okay, but you can sort of, you start with the assumption that we don't get anything. We have to raise the money. Okay? We can raise it, the STD, which the county has control over, and which they may or may not give us based on, it's something different than what they've been giving us money for. Or, we raise our assessment to accomplish the same thing.
Right.
Then deal with the ifs later.
So then you're saying.
If you get the grant, then the next year you reduce the
So you're
M&A.
saying take it out of the STD altogether? Is
Yeah,
that what you're
that's one approach.
saying?
So again, Jack, what are you saying? Are you,
Except that we've already got a proposal, just to the county. So I'm just thinking maybe we keep that as it is.
I don't know how far along they are either, Mike, with regard to, because the county will send out letters to every property owner. And I don't know if, I know we'll say there's a public hearing on March 15th, board has requested, and it might actually say X number of dollars right in that letter. If they've already printed that letter,
That may be too late.
I'm just
So,
saying,
yeah,
well, we could always
that-
have them print another one
That's
and
kind
just
of
pay
what,
for
those
it.
are the kind of
Well, you wanna do
questions we
anyway.
need to have answered.
Right. Okay.
But when they send out the letter, did they inform the people before the meeting what the STD is going to?
That's what I don't know. I don't know.
say? I'm kind of assuming, I think I've been to one, but that was another board meeting that had to do with CRE and whatever. But, I've never been to one of these things, so when you go there, the commissioners will say, the Drum Point Association is requesting $175 to be added to your property tax. Now, you all agree or disagree, and then people come up and spout off. Now, if you get 100 people there and 90 people are up in arms about the rate being increased, then do the commissioners say, okay, well, we won't give you the 175, we'll only give you
Yeah, they can do
so
that.
much.
They can do
They
that.
can do that, or they can overrule the
Or
community.
overrule everybody.
And then they can,
And then they don't get
I
elected.
remember the discussions at the last one was, then they launch off into discussions about, why are we doing this anyway? Why aren't you funding your own stuff? Why, and they go into this philosophical argument amongst themselves about STDs.
And we need to keep our STD because it makes us eligible for
Oh,
FEMA
yeah,
funding.
that's
We have
gotta
to
be the
keep
top
that.
priority.
Yeah,
Huh?
Yeah.
have to
Keeping
keep the,
some STDs.
yeah.
I mean, look at it, just, the Sure account alone, like all the FEMA stuff and all that, we just have to keep the STD. It's vital.
So what's the?
No, I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is the
But-
kind of discussions that they launch themselves into.
They do, but it needs to be made clear to them, it's not just the money, we need to keep the STD for other reasons.
So what's the least risky way to proceed? What Jack is saying, it sounds like,
I don't wanna give them any chance to change anything, I mean, keep that to
Yeah.
a minimum.
yeah,
That's why if if there's some piece of paper already floating around the county desk.
I don't know.
know.
I'll ask how far along they are
Yeah,
in progress.
we need to know
in the
that, and
process.
those are the kind of things that will help us finally decide on a decision. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
No decision made.
It's a very small.
You want to affirm the decision on the Bay Drive Causeway or whatever? I don't have the,
On the, oh, yes,
on words, I
Right,
don't have the
yeah,
estimate in front of me.
okay.
But
Well,
it
we-
went out by
We
email.
went out by email, and the estimate was in the order of between $6,000 and $7,000 to repair the erosion on the Bay Drive Causeway, where you come around the corner from Kerman property onto the main causeway. And we had both Carl Bowen and Jamie Ward look at it, and initially they were both gonna give us estimates. The more Carl looked at it, the more questions he had to himself, he finally decided to no bid it.
Because,
He just wanted to go in a
He
different route
did, he just,
with regard to permitting and stuff.
he was all wrapped around permitting and all this, and the one thing about Jamie, and I have problems with him sometimes, but the one thing about him is he understands the marine construction process. He understands the permitting, he understands who to talk to, who he doesn't need to talk to,
that's valuable.
and he completely understands that. So in a way, I think it was probably just as well. Anyway, so he gave us that bid, and it was good till the end of the month, and we told him, we sent around an email, and everybody said, yeah, let's go with it. But we need to just formally approve it. We're waiting on the final estimate, I think, right?
I think we have that.
We
We
have
just,
that.
I think they're in the process of permitting. getting
Okay,
permits.
so, we'd already turned them on. This is basically backdating the,
So do we do that now here? That's
Yeah.
what we want.
So, do you need a motion to affirm the?
so do we have a motion to approve the Bay Causeway erosion work by Jamie Moore?
I move.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Do you want to talk about Google or Zoom or?
Sure. We had a request just prior to the last membership meeting to open it up online. And, you know, it's only been one request in 18 years, but that was there. So I contacted, again, CRE because to see what they're doing. And they actually did open it up with COVID. They opened it up to their membership. There's different price structures. You can get Zoom for free for up to 40 minutes, like we know, because we did that, at no cost. But 40 minutes is not very long, especially by the time everybody finally gets tuned in and, you know, turns up their speaker and whatever. If you actually get a subscription, it's $15 a month. I think it's auto records too. I believe
And do we have the equipment to do this in the
Well,
meeting room itself?
nah, kind of, yes and no. I think CRE uses Google Meet, and they get up to 100 participants for 60 minutes at no cost, or $8 a month after 60 minutes. And it records and saves automatically and so on. But what they've also done at CRE is purchased a camera, and I don't have the numbers down here, but it was around $1,000. And this camera will actually pan from face to face as you come up and want to talk, and it will come on your face and put your face on the screen. $1,000. And the thing of it is, for them, it did not help them even make quorum. Everybody was clamoring, oh, we want to be online, we'll come to the meetings if we can just be online. Did not impact their quorum in the least. I thought we had quorum problems. They never get a quorum. And I asked if they use the Maryland law. She said, we've never had a quorum to be able to invoke it. I mean, we just don't have a quorum. We can't even, I said, how do you approve your minutes? We don't.
Why not?
We don't even do minutes because we don't have a quorum.
Oh, good
Wow.
Lord.
So that's a whole other subject, but the thing of it is, it didn't help them make quorum, and I don't know, do you wanna do that? You don't have to have that $1,000 piece of equipment.
You just do Google Meet. I
Yeah.
mean, we do,
And
the
if-
real estate office does Google Meet, and it's easy,
Yeah.
and it's good video, if, you know, if you're in proper light.
So it's just a question of one of us brings in our laptop, and, I mean, can they hear on it?
So what you do is, somebody sets up, actually goes into Google and sets up the Meet, and then sends out emails to everyone.
1,200 or 1,000 emails.
And
Okay.
it has a link and a phone number if you want to call in.
Uh-huh.
And on that day of the meeting, they go and click on the link, and it comes up just kind of like Zoom does. Everybody would be in there.
Do they have to be then let into the meeting room like you do with Zoom? No, it's just automatic?
It could be quite chaotic.
Can they hear? Because recall when we were in Jack's garage and it was Alyssa
When it gets what's done.
that came
Yes,
in on
they- yes,
Zoom.
Yes, they can.
She couldn't hear anything.
Because it's the microphone on your laptop or computer or on your phone. You have to be able to have a microphone
On your
and a
own.
camera on your laptop or
Right.
computer or your phone, whichever.
Or not have video.
Why,
Or not have video, exactly.
Who's monitoring the whole
why should we?
thing
I think
while
we-
it's happening?
It sounds to me
Because
like
of the board.
we don't
is-
have to do it, and there's only been the one request,
The one request.
I'd say.
And then how would you know how many people have logged in so that you could have a quorum?
You know,
Well, normally there's
it shows.
most
how
of them
many
show
people-
you how many people are.
It shows
Oh, well,
you
yeah,
on the
well,
side how
on the
many
Zoom,
people
you know, but I
If
mean,
you
if
have-
you're gonna have,
If you had 1,000 people dialing in, how would you get anything
yeah,
done?
you couldn't get, you
The
couldn't.
whole thing
Well,
would
we
be.
wouldn't have 1,000.
No, I know,
Never
but
have
I'm
that.
saying is
Well,
that
30,
it's-
let's say 35 people.
Right.
You can do that.
You have little
It shows them.
pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I went to my brother's meeting online, he's in Phoenix, and Bigger Condo Association, and they do it online, and it was just pictures across, or maybe just a phone number because somebody didn't want to be on video. But it gets smaller and smaller, the more people, the smaller those
And there's
pictures.
multiple pages too. You
Yeah.
can
Oh, okay.
scroll from page to page. There are, and I'd say if we were gonna do this, at least initially, we would say the first 100.
Yes.
So we don't have to pay for anything
Yeah,
more.
I don't think we'd get any more than
Oh, I
100.
I
don't
doubt
either.
it, but,
But it would be interesting to see if we could get a quorum. I bet.
well, but now here's another deal. Why do we need a quorum? Well, we need a quorum to make it a legitimate meeting, but it's also, we need a quorum to vote, right?
Right.
Okay? You can't vote on this stuff, because there's no secure way to do it. You have to have another means of recording secure electronic votes. And that's a whole nother,
Is this person who wants to do online, is that person incapable of showing up in person?
At that particular meeting, he had something else going on, I want to say, I don't know, Montgomery County or something.
But
Didn't get-
still, I mean,
I don't know if he lives here full-time.
you know, so you come to the meeting if you,
Well, I offered to let him, I would call him on my phone, but he did not respond to that. And then I forgot all about it to say, hey, gee, did you want to? He didn't ever,
I mean,
so that didn't happen.
in keeping with Jack's earlier idea of keeping things simple, and if we don't have to do this, that's a personal feeling, it just seems,
well, I agree.
it just seems like a goat
Yeah,
road to
there's
me.
only one person.
I mean, how do you, if you're home and I'm the admin person, okay, Maggie wants, you must do something, raise your hand, you want to talk now. So then I have to say, okay, Maggie's.
And you just say maybe unmute yourself. and-
Well, I'm just saying, well, yes, but I mean, you have to take turns,
Mhm.
so I just see it sort of.
I just think
I think it's not necessary
I think-
unless,
I think we
unless
should.
no one shows up because of COVID, but I can't imagine
Well-
that happening now.
No, I know.
but people can show up with masks on, and,
Right, his idea of reason for not coming wasn't because of COVID.
Yeah,
He wasn't gonna be in town.
Oh, okay.
I would tell him, if he's free to call if he wants to call.
Okay.
well, yeah, let's just not go through the thing.
Okay.
Sounds like horror.
Well,
Seems like more than.
I've been in these big Zoom meetings and,
you almost have to have once you get to any size at all, you almost have to have an administrator
yeah,
who can run the thing for you. And then there's questions about, well, okay, now if you're gonna show stuff, how do you get that into the meeting so that they can see it?
And there's $1,000 camera. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's,
what
I'm
we
just
do is
saying.
you share the screen. The administrator has the budget or whatever on their computer, and then they share it so everybody else can see it.
right.
But it
Yeah,
is a process.
Yeah, you can do that, but there's a process to it, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
people just think, oh, you just dial in and you're there.
But do we need to do this, go take this step? My personal feeling is,
No, I don't think so either.
that's just me. Yeah,
Okay.
to be a big grump, but,
Okay.
Okay.
And then this is the quick claim, which I sent out 2 weeks ago or more. And everybody, this is the one up on Lakeview,
Charming.
Lakeview, it's on Lake Charming.
Yeah.
And she wanted a quick claim for a floating dock. And it
Okay.
went around email, you had
Yeah.
some questions, and I think
I
we
just-
responded to those.
what, this floating dock, how does that work? I just have no idea. Okay.
Well,
I just,
They're
I mean,
different,
it
right?
has nothing to do with approving or not, I just don't know. if that-
Yeah, I don't-
right,
I
there are different forms of them, some of them,
Like anchored?
well, some of them
No
are
pilings,
actually,
I guess.
you put pilings in, just like you would on a fixed dock,
Uh-huh.
and then it's got some kind of a sliding mechanism on the pilings that allow it to go up and down, because
Oh, okay.
the main reason you have a floating dock is for tidal changes.
Oh, okay.
Well, in the lake, you're not gonna get that much of a
Right,
tidal
yeah,
change,
yeah.
so I don't know what they're doing, but, the other very simple approach is you can buy, polystyrene floats that lock together,
Uh-huh.
and you can just build a floating dock, and just tie it to the shore.
Okay.
So I don't know what he's
Gets
doing.
anchored somehow.
But the state does require, they treat it as a riparian thing, and
Mhm.
they probably require, I think in this case, they had to go to not the normal county, but they had to go to another building group or something, I don't know. But they have to go through the permit process on a floating dock too.
So it's floated on, it has to be, you know.
And when it gets stuck in the culvert,
Yeah.
we have to pump it out.
I mean, how mobile is it over there?
Well, I
So
think
anyway,
it's
we need a-
secure to the.
We need a motion to approve it or not approve it, or whatever you want to do. I don't see any downside to it.
I don't
There was,
think-
there was a question, I think Tony raised it.
Tony had it, yeah.
Okay, Tony raised a question about, well, should we allow people to do this?
He was afraid that, right, that.
Are
it
they
would
ruining
be
the aesthetics of the
eyesore
lake?
and
Well,
there'd be too
I
many.
think we're,
But if it's, basically, if it's fixed to
you
where it's
can't
gonna
make
be.
her run pregnant. She's already pregnant, and we already have,
Yeah,
these docks, not
okay, yeah.
necessarily on this
It's
one,
good
but,
claims, though.
I think we just don't understand what the thing was.
Yeah.
I mean, so now we think we understand.
And they're attached, and, I mean, unless you get a hurricane or
Yeah.
a tornado come through here, it's not, you know, they're
And
they're
even your
attached.
fixed stuff, we
Yeah,
throw it away
they're
too.
fixed, so.
Okay, so,
okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
Yeah, a second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Maybe you're somebody that thinks she's great, send it in, and then I'll notarize it tomorrow.
Goodness.
I'll make
Oh,
a
let me show you my ID card.
Okay. Tell me who you are. And it's got the verbiage that it needs to have about access and all that, it's the same.
All right, is there, anybody else have anything to add to this marathon meeting?